So like we said earlier in this lesson, we've actually been talking about kinds of metacognition throughout this course even if we didn't call it that at the time. We were talking about agents reflecting on their own knowledge and correcting it when they were introduced to a mistake. Earlier in this lesson, we also talked about the possibility that an agent would reflect on the learning process that led it to the incorrect knowledge and correct that learning process as well. Back during partial order planning, we talked about agents that could balance multiple plans and resolve conflicts between those plans. This could be seen as a form of metacognition as well. The agent plans out a plan for achieving one goal, a plan for achieving the other goal, and then thinks about its own plans for those two goals. Then it detects the conflict between those plans and resolves that conflict accordingly. Then it detects the conflict between those two plans and creates a new plan to avoid that conflict. Here, the agent is reasoning over its own planning process. We saw this in production systems as well. We had an agent that reached an impasse. It had two different pitches suggested and it couldn't decide between the two. That spawned a new learning goal, to find a rule to choose between those pitches. It then selected a learning strategy of chunking, went to its memory, found a case, and chunked a rule that would help it resolve that impasse. In this case, the agent used that impasse to set up a new learning goal. It then selected a strategy selection, to achieve that learning goal. We can also see metacognition in version spaces. Our agent has a notion of specific and general models, and it also has a notion of convergence. The agent is consistently thinking about its own specific and general model and looking for opportunities to converge them down into one model of the concept. And finally, we can very clearly see metacognition in our lesson on diagnosis. We talked about how the results of our treatment become new data for our iterative process of diagnosis. If our treatment didn't spawn desirable results, it also spawns data for the meta layer. Not only do we still want to diagnose the current malfunction, but we also want to diagnose why we weren't able to diagnose it correctly in the first place. So now we're diagnosing the problem with our diagnosis process. So as we can see, metacognition has actually been implicit in several of the topics we've talked about in this course.